Welcome everybody to In the Now with Simone Jennifer Smith. You know what, honestly, girl. So I'm gonna be straight up. I just got we are working with this show. It's a brand new show. And I'm excited because my girl, my production manager, I guess that's the title I'm gonna give her. She's been helping me develop this show. And she just introduced my new intro, which I think, you know what? So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna make it longer. So we're gonna make it longer, and we're gonna play with fonts. But other than that, I really like the fact that we had all those racing news things. That was cool. I definitely keep all of that. See, it's a work in progress. I told her not to worry. We'll do it. We'll do that. So guys, welcome to In the Now with Simone Jennifer Smith, and of course, we're changing the format of our show. I'm playing with this show because I want to find a really good fit for what we are doing here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start condensing the news, and I've now introduced a new segment called In Tune with the Universe, which I will explain about later. So let's get right into our news right now. So I don't know if anybody heard about this, and before I go into this section, I do want to say it is always important for us to be working with our youth. So I have a young lady all the way in Egypt right now, Miss Amnea Ali, who is helping me collect news so that I can do this, because my life is, and I need that assistance. So she's actually helping me with all this news collection. I'm very happy and thankful for her. So thank you, Amnia, for this. I appreciate you. I don't know what time it is in Egypt, but she must have been up early doing some of this work for me. So one story that she sent me was that Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has invited a million immigrants from individual countries to come to this country. So apparently the rumor was that he was targeting Nigeria, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and she gave it up. Of course, it is false information. I'm going to go through what is actually happening. But these are the countries that were supposed to be approached: Zambia, Ghana, Philippines, Nigeria, and Kenya. Okay? So the article has been seen circulating online and on social media, but everybody, the story is not true. So yes, this is, I believe, what is her name? High Commissioner Pamela O'Donnell. So she is shaking hands with the Prime Minister of Zambia, but the headline, guys, is false. So one thing again that I want to remind you guys, when you're watching news, do not just take everything so literally. Do your research, especially if it affects you. So the Government Immigration Office, Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada have made it clear that there is no offer. So if you've been caught up in all of this, if you heard something like this and you think there's an opportunity, I'm really sorry to tell you it's not true. Okay, so similar headlines have appeared with claims that Canada has invited a million immigrants from Africa and the Philippines. So this is just going all over the place, okay? The stories are false, but they are built on the back of Canada's immigration policy, which was announced earlier this year, that the Canadian government plans to attract 1 million immigrants over a period of 3 years. So not totally false, but false in the sense where they're just all being invited right now. There's something in the works. I'm hoping to get some more details about that because that'd be interesting to know, like to know where they're going to put everybody. Curious. So in Nigeria, there's a version of the story that first appeared in April, and it was shared 1,000 times or over 1,000 times on Facebook. So this is how quickly this type of false information has been going around and spreading. And it's kind of harmful because people get their hopes up and then they realize it's not true. So I think I have another post there. It appeared on Reddit. So the Canadian High Commissions in Nigeria and Kenya have warned people against falling for these stories. If you've seen this link on your social media timeline, don't fall for it. The story is not true. But this is not the only piece of disinformation targeting Nigerians interested in moving to Canada. Did this girl put disinformation? I hope if she got this from a site, it's misinformation. It's not disinformation. Oh gosh. So Nigeria posted another warning urging people not to fall for these texts that were going out. Anything that has to do with Canada accepting a million immigrants, false. That's it. So don't fall for everybody. And again, just be mindful of where you're taking in your news. Don't just do your research, everybody. please, it's very important that even with what I say, do your research. I could be wrong. Maybe you have something, which I'm hoping you do, that you can comment on. And if you do about this topic, leave a comment in our YouTube box or on our Facebook. Or if you have questions or anything to add, definitely do that too. So when we get back, we're actually going to talk about June, because in Canada, June is National Indigenous History Month. So this, I think we need to explore a little bit. We're not going to spend too much time on it, but I do want you guys to acknowledge that there were other communities that have been, you know what? Let's just deal with it when we get back. We'll see you in a few minutes on In the Now.
With so many newspapers within the community, it's sometimes hard to tell what separates us from the rest. Most of the time, they all brag about the same thing. You know, the large circulations, tons of online views, and it can go on and on. But what really separates the Toronto Caribbean newspaper apart from everybody else? Well, it's simple. Our service. No, seriously. Hi, I'm Grant Browning, founder and CEO of the Toronto Caribbean newspaper. I have over 20 years of branding and marketing experience, and I've worked with countless companies and corporations to do one thing, and that is to raise their profits with their brand. With over 40 years of combined experience in branding and marketing, our amazing staff is fully prepared to sit down and figure out exactly what you need to stand out from your competitors.
The reason why you don't see his ad anymore is because
the ad is too powerful, bring too much people.
So what are you waiting for? Give us a call today. We'll be happy to help.
At Benjamin Law, we understand the real cost of personal injuries. As the victim of an accident, you may be the one who's physically hurt, but your main concern is that your family are the ones who will pay the price. Benjamin Law will be there for you, helping, supporting, and working tirelessly to resolve your personal injury case. Call 1-855-899-4878 or visit benjaminlaw.ca and let our family of lawyers help your family.
Aboriginal Day is a day to celebrate who we are and to honor our culture and traditions.
It is an opportunity to stand in solidarity with reconciliation.
In this era of reconciliation, I think it's extremely important that we share our teachings so that all of Canada can grow together in peace and harmony.
Our hope lies in learning and an unwavering commitment to tolerance, respect, and inclusiveness.
Aboriginal Day is a day to honor our past, present, and future.
It is also a day to honor and celebrate the many accomplishments of our diverse nations across this country.
The potential exists for a new era of mutual respect and healing. We need to reflect on our relationships and responsibilities to each other.
Aboriginal Day represents no longer having to hide who we are and being able to share that with our future generations and the rest of Canada.
Welcome back, everybody, to In the Now on my TCN TV network. So this month in June, Canadians celebrate National Indigenous History Month, and it's an opportunity to honor the heritage, contribution, and cultures of Indigenous people living here in Canada. So National Indigenous History Month provides an opportunity to recognize not only the historic contribution of Indigenous people to the development of Canada, but also the strength of present-day Indigenous communities and their promise for the future. So, celebrating National Indigenous History Month in June is an important tribute to the heritage and diversity of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities across Canada. So, just a little history on it for you guys. National Aboriginal Day was announced in 1996 by then Governor General of Canada, Romeo LeBlanc, through the proclamation declaring June 21st of each year as National Aboriginal Day. This was the result of consultations and statements of support for such a day by various Indigenous groups. In 1982, the National Indian Brotherhood, now called the Assembly of First Nations, called for the creation of National Aboriginal Solidarity Day. In 1995, the Sacred Assembly, a national conference of Indigenous and non-Indigenous people, chaired by Elijah Harper, called for a national holiday to celebrate the contributions of Indigenous peoples. Also in 1995, the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples recommended the designation of a National First Nations Peoples Day. On June 21st, 2017, the Prime Minister issued a statement announcing the intention to rename the day National Indigenous Peoples Day. So there's been a history of this happening. This is something that's been going on for a while. And I'm going to give you a couple listings. So actually, it's really, really cool. I went on Eventbrite, and there's tons of different groups that are offering listings of events that are happening in Toronto for the month. So I actually went to Indigenous in Toronto on Eventbrite, and they have a list of events that are happening, which include on June 12th, Indigenous Environmental Justice Project, and that's by the Toronto Public Library Learning Circle. June 13th, I'm just pulling some out, some of the ones that caught my eye. June 13th, Indian Horse Indigenous Heritage Movie, and this is also by the Toronto Public Library Learning Circle. And on June 21st, Indigenous Development Conference. This one actually is very interesting to me. I'm actually going to see if I can go to this one and tap in a little bit, because I definitely, obviously with working with news, I want to be able to be part of a lot of the events that happen in our communities. So that's by Branches of Native Development. Now again, if you are interested in participating, learning, being part of any of the activities happening during this month, click on an Eventbrite. Honestly, there's a lot of different things. Click on an Eventbrite. The one that I pulled from was, again, Indigenous in Toronto. So that's what's happening in Toronto. We gave a little bit of what's happening in Canada. We didn't really go too international, except for the fact that some of the stuff that was being said here was affecting people in Africa and other parts of the world. Now, we are actually going to come back to Toronto, and I'm going to be interviewing and speaking to, I don't like to say interview, I want to say dialoguing with a filmmaker who has put together and put forth, guys, definitely stay tuned for our next segment in Tune with the Universe. I sometimes want to start and not give too much away, so stay tuned. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. May your dreams all come true. Happy birthday to you.
We refuse to promote, report on anything negative in the community. With so many newspapers within the community, it's sometimes hard to tell what separates us from the rest. Most of the time, they all brag about the same thing. You know, the large circulations, tons of online views, and it can go on and on. But what really separates the Toronto Caribbean newspaper apart from everybody else? Well, it's simple. Our service. No, seriously. Hi, I'm Grant Browning, founder and CEO of the Toronto Caribbean newspaper. I have over 20 years of branding and marketing experience, and I've worked with countless companies and corporations to do one thing, and that is to raise their profits with their brand. With over 40 years of combined experience in branding and marketing, our amazing staff is fully prepared to sit down and figure out exactly what you need to stand out from your competitors.
The reason why you don't see his ad anymore is because
The ad is too powerful, bring too much people.
So what are you waiting for? Give us a call today. We'll be happy to help.
Welcome everybody, welcome back. So I'm gonna first start by saying thank you guys all for joining us here on In the Now. And I'd like to welcome you all to a segment I like to call In Tune with the Universe. So this is a new section of In the Now, which focuses on the genesis of a genius. There's a point in many of our lives where we find out exactly who we are supposed to be. When this happens, life begins to make sense, and what you are destined to become begins to evolve. It is at this time that you are truly in tune with the universe. So today, I would like to introduce to you Mr. Phillip Pike, an emerging documentary filmmaker and definitely someone who is in tune with the universe. So a little bit about him before I start picking his brain, because that's exactly what I'm here to do. As a graduate of McGill University Faculty of Law, Phillip's journey of personal and professional discovery has taken him from a career of creating change as a community activist and human rights lawyer to a career creating change through storytelling as a documentary filmmaker. Now, do you want me to go through where you graduated from? Should I tell? I think people should know. I think people should know. So he's a graduate of the Documentary Filmmaking Institute, School of Creative Arts and Animation, Seneca College, Toronto. He has also received intensive training in video production at Trinity Square Video in Toronto and the Bay Area Video Coalition in San Francisco. So his project, his baby, Roaring River Films, is dedicated to the production and distribution of documentaries that inform and inspire with a focus on capturing the experience and perspective of queer people of African descent across the African diaspora. So I would like to introduce to everybody at the MyTCN, our family here, Mr. Phillip Pike.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you.
That was pretty good, right? My intro?
Right, more than pretty good. Excellent.
Yay, did it. So you were telling me when you first came here, you've gone through like a few of these. Where else have you been interviewed for this documentary?
Well, I mean, we're fortunate in that there has been a lot of interest in the film, and so we've spoken to the Globe and Mail, CBC, Toronto, Now magazine. There's a magazine called POV, which stands for Point of View, which is sort of an industry magazine in the documentary filmmaking industry. So yeah, it's been wonderful to have the interest in the project and the story that it tells.
So, since we're talking about being in tune with the universe, so in your story, I've heard that you're originally into law. Like, Going from law to film, mind you, the work that you're doing within your films is very resonant of what you did when you're in your past career. But tell me about that transition. What happened there?
Sure. Yeah. So, I started off, I went to law school, was a lawyer, was practicing law for a couple of years. But, at a certain point, it just felt like this really wasn't what I was meant to be. Don't have any regrets about, my law degree, don't have any regrets about the experience of practicing law. It's opened a lot of doors, and I think it's an interesting, useful discipline to have. But yeah, just one day I thought, this is not really feeling like, this is not what my passion is. Okay. And at about that time, I was sort of at a crossroads in my career because I had been practicing law for about 7 years and was thinking about the next steps. And I'd actually decided to apply to graduate school with the hope of, doing graduate studies in law to eventually become a legal academic. And at about that same time, so I actually had sent off an application to Columbia Law School in New York. And about that same time, I met someone at a conference and ended up visiting him in the desert in Arizona. And he was a very spiritual man, and just had a really interesting sort of experience participating in a ceremony in the desert in Arizona.
Oh.
And some might call it a spiritual awakening.
Okay.
But yeah, I just got up the next morning after that ceremony, and it was, the way I describe it, it's sort of like walking into a room that you had always been in, but suddenly the lights were turned up a little bit, so you could sort of see the furniture, you could sort of see the lay of the land a little better. So, at that moment, when I look back at my life, I realized that I'd always had a camera in my hand. When I was about 13 years old, my parents gifted me a Bell & Howell movie camera. I'm dating myself, but it's a Super 8 movie camera. And for those of you in the audience who know what that is, great, then you're of my same vintage.
I have no idea.
But anyway, and I had this little movie camera, and I would take it everywhere. I would take it on family vacations. When we went to Jamaica, I would take it to weddings, and of course, always getting in people's way, and photographing stuff and videotaping. And then later on, I always had a camera in my hand, a Polaroid, Instamatic, and then eventually, like a professional camera. So it was kind of like, this had always been there, but I just sort of stepped into this realization. And then from that point, so that was about 1998. So from that point, it really was about then, sort of making it happen.
Okay, so you decide I'm going to switch from law to being a filmmaker. What were some of the thoughts from people around you?
Why are you doing this? Why are you throwing away all the money that you spent on your legal education? Can you make a living at this? I can go on, but all of those questions. I think part of the story there too, and of course I can only say this now, with a little bit of age and a little bit more maturity, is that, as a child growing up, perhaps those artistic, inclinations were always there, but you get certain messages about choosing a safe career, right? About choosing a path that's going to, bring you what you're looking for in life. And so, as I say, I don't regret those years doing that, and it was actually a stepping stone to doing this. And there's many paths in any particular journey, right? There's no one particular path. So no regrets, but here I am doing filmmaking, which I absolutely enjoy.
What's your background, your cultural background?
So I was born in Jamaica, and I emigrated with my family to Canada in the early 70s and settled in Toronto.
Okay, so you know what? It's interesting. I always find that I knew when I asked you what you were going to tell me of what people were saying around you, because that's just a very West Indian thing to say. Why are you doing this? Can you make any money doing this? It's just those questions that, how did you not get depressed, and how did you not get, or or how did you deal with that? Because it's tough to hear that, because it's usually coming from friends and family, and those are the people you're like, come on, just support me with this one. How do you deal with that? Just in case, because I know the purpose of this is to give that type of encouragement to those who are watching, who are like, ugh, because there's gonna be naysayers. How do you deal with that personally?
For me personally, I've always been someone who I grew up for the most part as an only child. I had two older sisters, but they're very much older than me, 17 and 11 years. So by time, I was sort of 5, 6, had a kind of consciousness of the world, they had already in fact moved out of, the family home. So for the most part, I grew up as an only child, and I've always had this sort of inner sense of, I guess, my own inner compass, my own inner sense of what is right and what is wrong, what works for me, what doesn't. And so, and I probably get a little bit from my mother, actually, thinking about this, because my mother was the type of person who, I think the expression still waters run deep would apply to my mother. My mother was not someone who said a lot, but you knew, and you were made to know in many ways, that she knew exactly what was going on. And I think one of the things I got from her was this, blaze your own path, do what feels right to you. And she very much sort of protected our family unit from sort of outside influences. So, there were aunts and there were uncles and there were cousins and there was friends and whatever, but there was always that little bit of a distance and always that clear sort of boundary that, this is who we are and there. So I think I grew up with that. And so I've been like this in many ways. I'll get an idea into my head or into my heart, and I'll just run with it. And I hear the criticism and I hear that whatever, but there's a part of me which is able to tune it out, literally. Because there's something in me that says, this is what you need to do, and this is how you need to do it. And I'm not saying, I listen to counsel and wise counsel, and I take advice and all that. But I also sort of filter it through, that inner voice of, this is
what feels good here for me.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's almost like it sounds like you recognize that people are going to have their opinions, but they're living it from their perspective. So you've kind of embraced. Yeah. How long did it take to be able to do that concrete thing? Because I'm working on that.
It takes time, and I think as you go along and you experience it, and you get affirmed, and then it reinforces it, so that the next time, the bottom line really is follow your heart. And I think everyone can understand that, right? Forget about intuition, forget about inner voice, just follow your heart. And I think if you follow your heart, you will never be led astray. But yeah, it does take time. So you step out a little bit from the mainstream, you step out of your comfort zone, but something happens and you think, okay, I'm still alive, I've still made it, and the sun is still rising, the clocks are still ticking, and then you get affirmed, okay, so I can do this, and then the next day you take another step, right? And you just kind of keep going, and it feeds on itself, and it builds a kind of, self-affirmation, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. See, this is why I named this section In Tune with the Universe, because that's exactly what you're talking about, is being in tune with that part of yourself where that what you're doing is good for you, not for anybody else, but for you. So you actually asked most of the questions that I had. I didn't even mean for it to go like that, but that's what happened. So let's talk about, okay, you've entered into filmmaking. We'll take the last 2 minutes to do this, because we're going to talk about a film that you have upcoming, which definitely we need to talk about. But you've also done another one. I think it was called, don't tell me.
Let me know when I can tell you.
You can tell me now.
Well, I've done 2 films before the most recent one. So my first film was called Songs of Freedom.
That's it.
Yeah.
I'm so bad. I had on the tip of my tongue. I'm like, this is a Bob Marley song. What song is this? Redemption song, Songs of Freedom. Okay, yes. So that one. Tell us about that one.
So yeah, that was my first film, and it came out in 2003. And Songs of Freedom is basically about gay life in Jamaica. As we talked about earlier, I left Jamaica as a young child, and at a certain point in my life, I guess I felt like once I had gone through that journey of sort of coming out to myself and embracing my sexual identity as a gay man, I felt this urge to kind of go back to Jamaica, and it almost felt like I needed to experience Jamaica with adult ears and adult eyes, and maybe also thinking about what might my life had been had I remained in Jamaica, had my family not migrated to Canada. And so, that was sort of the seed, the germination of the idea that kind of led me to go to Jamaica and make a film about gay life in Jamaica.
Difficulties with that? Difficulties.
Actually, I went about it in a very, I started work on that film in 1998, at the end of 1998. And, just as we're talking about following your heart and things sort of coming along to affirm you, I basically, by that point in my life, I had almost 10 years of post-secondary education. I didn't feel like going back to film school at that point and spending another 3 or 4 years. So I kind of took some, quick workshops on, how to make a video, how to put together a film. And then I bought some equipment and a plane ticket, and I went to Jamaica. And the day that I landed in Jamaica, it was in December 1998. And the following morning, I was sitting on my cousin's terrace in Kingston, and I picked up the newspaper. So that was now the newspaper from the day before. And on the front page of the newspaper, a group called J-Flag, which was an advocacy group for gays and lesbians in Jamaica, had just launched itself the day that I landed. Unbeknownst to me, just pure coincidence or pure synchronicity. And so having that group form was really important, because it meant that it was an avenue for me to kind of meet people and connect with people and have them eventually participate in the film. So again, another example of you follow your heart and the universe kind of just, facilitates
in tune
with the universe.
Hence the show. So when we come back, we're actually going to go into your most recent film, which, we're going to talk about this. We'll see you soon on In the Now.
At Benjamin Law, we understand the real cost of personal injuries. As the victim of an accident, you may be the one who's physically hurt, but your main concern is that your family are the ones who will pay the price. Benjamin Law will be there for you, helping, supporting, and working tirelessly to resolve your personal injury case. Call 1-855-899-4878 or visit benjaminlaw.ca and let our family of lawyers help your family.
With so many newspapers within the community, it's sometimes hard to tell what separates us from the rest. Most of the time, they all brag about the same thing. The large circulations, tons of online views, and it can go on and on. But what really separates the Toronto Caribbean newspaper apart from everybody else? Well, it's simple. Our service. No, seriously. Hi, I'm Grant Browning, founder and CEO of the Toronto Caribbean newspaper. I have over 20 years of branding and marketing experience, and I've worked with countless companies and corporations to do one thing, and that is to raise their profits with their brand. With over 40 years of combined experience in branding and marketing, our amazing staff is fully prepared to sit down and figure out exactly what you need to stand out from your competitors.
The reason why you don't see his ad anymore is because
The ad is too powerful, bring too much people.
So what are you waiting for? Give us a call today. We'll be happy to help.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity and our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.
To be Black and queer is to be a danger to the world. And I think that that's beautiful. If I had to say one thing to Black, queer, and trans ancestors, it would be thank you.
The whole question of lesbian, it was as if we didn't actually exist.
We were just beginning as Black gays and lesbians in Toronto to really think about politically organizing. I know this house of lesbians and gays of color. It's a collective.
Is our purpose to be a Black group in the queer community or a queer group in the Black community?
You don't need a mass to speak back against injustice.
At that age, it's about finding place. Learn how to give a speech at a rally. Learn how to picket concrete survival skills about struggle.
There was a notion of this sort of political piece, kind of activist piece, kind of marching and being visible piece. But there's always a dancing piece. There's always a celebrating piece.
Yes, I see you, brother. Bang, bang, come. Support your people in Africa. They need money.
Murderer! Murderer! The place is still.
Not all of us have left those spaces healthy and well emotionally.
Would you like to be tested for HIV? Yes.
On this day, I want to acknowledge those who have fought the good fight.
This was when the epidemic was in the height.
We have not honored the great, the incomparable Michelle Ross.
Diva Michelle.
I just want to say before I leave, I want to thank you guys for fighting for us.
I am now DJ Black Cat. You're not going to act like we don't exist here.
Blockorama was a vision of a group
to interrupt the whiteness of pride.
I wanted a church for the messy folk, affirming the multiplicities of identities that we inhabited.
And that was the beginning of Black Lives Matter Toronto. It's a movement that is led by trans people. It's a movement that is led by women.
Listen! We are talking about the deaths in our communities. We are talking about underrepresentation. We are talking about a pride that is more inclusive to us all.
We can come out in love, and we come out and dance our dance of revolution.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. So that was a really cool trailer.
Thank you.
That was really, really cool. So let's talk about this a little bit. Okay, so there's an untold history of Toronto's Black queer community that spans 4 decades. You're refusing to be silenced and raging with love, the featured trailblazers in this documentary demand a city where they can all live their truths free from the threat of violence. Each bit of a revolutionary ground was gained collaboratively, whether protesting police brutality, forming feminist collectives, or making room for grief and healing in the wake of the HIV/AIDS pandemic. Our dance of revolution celebrates the living legends among us by unearthing what has been made invisible. So let's talk about our dance of revolution. 35 years in the making?
Yes.
It's a long time.
It is a long time.
You know how many people's attention span is 35 years of doing something? Most people don't even, honestly, unfortunately, some people don't even live 35 years.
This is true. This is true.
So talk to me about this documentary. I really want to see this. So the screening let's talk about the screening first, and we're going to go into it. When is the screening?
Sure. So the screenings are this Sunday, June 9th. There are 2 screenings, so one at 2 p.m. and another at 5:45 p.m. And they're both happening at the Hot Docs Ted Rogers Cinema. A lot of words, but Hot Docs Ted Rogers Cinema. It used to be called the Bloor Cinema on Bloor Street, Bloor and Bathurst, basically. Yeah. So Sunday afternoon, 2 and 5:45. Yeah.
Okay. So is that the only day? Because what if I can't make it on Sunday? I really want to see this.
Those are the only screenings scheduled in Toronto for now. There might be some later in the year.
Okay.
But this is probably the last chance to be on a really big screen with big sound. So if you can, make it on Sunday, but also check out the website, ourdanceofrevolution.com, for future screenings.
I think I'm going to. So could we come and like report on it? Can me and Selena come?
Sure, absolutely.
So Selena, we might have to go down on Sunday. Okay. I can make the 5 o'clock show too, so that works out.
Wonderful.
We'll be there. So let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Let's talk about our dance of revolution. 35 years. Let's start from year one.
Yeah. So I came into Toronto's Black queer community in about 1993, and I was in my early 30s at the time. Graduated from law school, started my first law job, and had come out around my sexuality and was comfortable around that. But there was something missing, because most of my time in Canada up until that point, most of my social circles were people of European descent, and so I felt a need to kind of connect with my tribe. And I remember this as clearly as if it happened yesterday. I was sitting in my office on the 31st floor, First Canadian Place, and I picked up Share magazine, the community newspaper at the time, and there was an advertisement. They were looking for board members to volunteer to join the board of Black CAP, which is the Black Coalition for AIDS Prevention, which is a community-based organization. And so I joined the board, and through that met a group of wonderful people who had been sort of, being activists in the community for at least 10 or 12 years before that, organizing, creating space, making Black queer lives really visible. Because the starting point, if we go back 35 years, if we go back to the early 80s, at that time, there had already been gay liberation, right? So Stonewall had already happened, and there was a certain kind of movement, a recognition of lesbian and gay rights in mainstream community. But within the Black community, invisibility was still the word, So it wasn't something that was even acknowledged. It was invisible. It didn't exist. People just denied that it even existed. And so that was the starting point, really. And folks came together. I think of them as being courageous, because I do think it takes a lot of courage to step out of your private comfort zone and really step up to do community work and to build community, right?
Yes.
And the Black folks in Toronto, Black folks in many places around the world have been doing that for a long, long time.
Yes.
It just so happens that this particular story starts in the early 80s for the Black queer community here in Toronto, right? So they came together. The first step was a collective. Makeda Silvera, who's featured in the film, is walking down the street in the West End of Toronto, sees this beautiful Victorian home, and is just enamored with it, and decides with her partner, even though they have no money, nothing, to lease this house, right? And of course the house it's a mess. It's, there are dead cats, the walls are insulated with newspapers, it's falling apart, it's cracking. But they lease the house, and they get some friends together to come and fix it up. And they start putting out the word that, hey, we're gonna start a collective community here, so people can come, they can live in the house, help them to pay the rent. And that's where it started, right? And that's a story it's not particular to Toronto. I mean, I think if you look at many communities across North America, there's a similar kind of story of, folks coming together to live collectively because they have shared values and because they really can't find acceptance anywhere else, right? Yeah. So that's where the film picks up the story in the early 80s and the Dewson House Collective. And from there, we sort of move forward as folks sort of get to know each other, build community, and then they start creating, social spaces, advocacy spaces, support spaces, so organizations like ZAMI was one of the first organizations to be created. And it came out of, just people sitting around a kitchen table talking about, well, what is it that we need? and what can make our lives better here in Toronto? You know, how can we change the landscape to make it more welcoming for us, right? And so that's the story. And so, you know, coming right up to the present, that story is repeated over and over and over. So many organizations, you know, creating social spaces, creating spiritual places, creating activist places, where people can come together and feel affirmed. So that's the story.
You know what's interesting? It's with filmmakers, whenever you put them in front of a camera, you see them freeze up. It is hilarious to watch. Selena, are you good in front of a camera? No. Yes, apparently this is just a filmmaker thing. So, what is the message that you would want for those who are not in the queer community? For myself, who's going to come watch it on Sunday, what would be the message that you want us to get the most from this documentary? Where would that being in tune come in?
I think, you know, there are many messages, but if I were to choose one and sort of boil it down, I would say it is the story of the transformative power of community, right? Okay. I'll repeat that. So the transformative power of community. It's what happens when people come together, take collective action to deal with something, right? And I think that's a message that is universal, that applies to Black community, applies to queer community, it applies to many different, you know, parts of society. And I think in this particular time where there is so much talk about political division and divisiveness, and we're made to feel that there is more that separates us than that actually unites us, I think this is a really powerful message, right? Yeah. So it's what happens when you come together, you know, and you form organizations, you form support groups, you create. I mean, they created Blockorama, which is now probably the largest stage and presence and the Pride Parade and the Pride festivities, and it's now a place where Black people and people of color who are queer can find a home within Toronto's Pride celebration, right? Those things may seem, you know, I don't know, symbolic or whatever, but it's actually very important because it's about visibility, it's about taking up space, it's about recognizing, you know, that we're here and we're part of the community, and in fact we have been contributing to the community, you know, for many, many years. Right. So yeah, it's a transformative power of community. It's what happens when people come together and take action.
So I'd like for you to define a word for me, because I picked out certain things. I got some keywords. Collective action. What does that look like? Because I think that might be something that's missing with a lot of the organization and groups in our community, the West Indian community, the Caribbean community. I think we mean well, but I don't think we really get this idea of collective action. So can you kind of break that down a little bit?
Sure. You know, as you're asking the question, I was reminded about 10 or 15 years ago, I was approached to have my photograph included on a wall in the community, a wall of activists. And I questioned this because I never thought of myself as an activist. And I was talking to someone about it, and he said, well, you know, what is an activist? It's someone who acts, right? It's someone who does. Right. And so that really is the key. Because we can all sit around and have interesting philosophical debates about things and talk about things, which is important too. But I think at a certain point we need to act, right? We need to do. And I'm often asked this question by younger folks, you know, who have grown up in the digital age, where there isn't as much sort of social cohesiveness, at least in the real world, maybe in cyberspace, but not in the real world. And they ask me, well, you know, how did you guys get along? I said, well, we did. Like, to take a very concrete example, I like to sing, and I've been a part of a number of choirs in Toronto, but I never really felt that there was a choir that fit what I was looking for. So I started my own. like I acted. I got a bunch of friends together and I say, let's make this happen. And we've been doing this now for 2 years.
So hold on. Hold on. So you can sing?
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I said, I said I like to sing. I didn't say I can sing. I said I like to sing. There's a difference.
Semantics. So hold on. You sing. You sing. So are you gonna sing anything?
No, I'm not. I'm not gonna. I will not subject your listeners to that.
So what's the name of your group? Let's at least get that. What's the name of your group?
The name of our group is Sing Our Own Song.
All right.
And that was actually the name, is that some of your audience members might recognize that is the name of a song by the British pop group UB40. And Sing Our Own Song was actually, in the 80s, it was sort of an anthem, a protest anthem that was played at a lot of the anti-apartheid demonstrations, right? Because it talks about our struggle as black people, as people from the continent of Africa, and about liberation. So we thought that was a really fitting name for us. And we can sing, literally, we get to sing our own song. We don't have to sing the songs that other people say we have to sing. We can sing our own.
Okay, see, and I like how you've connected everything back to the community, to us as a people, and the liberation of Africans. I love how every single thing you do connects back to that, because you're an activist. It makes sense because you act. So I really, first of all, before we go, I want to thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed the interview.
I did, absolutely.
Like I tell people all the time, I'm not your typical interviewer. I don't have time for them boring questions. I want to really
And you don't have any ferns. Usually interviewers have 2 ferns.
I refuse. I'm not. No, I'm the modern day. No ferns, okay? But I really want to thank you for coming here and sharing your story and how you became in tune with the universe. And where can people find you?
They can find me, well, our company is Roaring River Films, and we have a website, roaringriverfilms.com.
This is all on the bottom, by the way. I just wanted to say it too.
Or for the film, they want information about the film has its own website. So ourdanceofrevolution.com. And there's lots of info there about screenings, and you can watch the trailer from there and all that good stuff.
Okay, so thank you everybody for tuning in. I hope you guys liked this segment of what I'm doing. And if you guys like In Tune with the Universe and you know someone who has become in tune with the universe who deserves a moment to kind of share that story so we all can learn, please, again, contact me, Simone at carib101.com. Send me a quick email, or you can there's so many ways to get in contact with me. I'm everywhere. Simone Jennifer Smith. Just look me up. Everybody have a wonderful Friday. Thank you for joining us again. And definitely, I'm coming on Sunday. We're going to figure this out because I want to be there Sunday to see this film. You guys have a wonderful Friday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. May your dreams all come true. Happy birthday to you.
refuse to promote, report on anything negative in the community.